Hi, I'm Scott from Schedulo, and welcome to this video on the fundamentals of mobile extension development. Today I'm going to cover off what exactly mobile extensions are, common use cases, and the key elements of a mobile extension. So let's talk about what mobile extensions are. Mobile extensions allow you to extend the core features and functionality of the Schedulo Plus mobile app with your own custom functionality. Put another way, it's our mobile customization layer. But before we get into looking at some of the common use cases, I'd like to take a moment to just double click into the benefits that you get from using the Mobile Extensions framework. Firstly, this framework is available for any customer, implementer, or partner to use to build mobile-first solutions for Schedulo Plus. And it really makes it super simple for developers and implementers alike to focus on solving business requirements and not have to worry about things like data synchronization, conflict resolution, offline access, data validation, multilingual support, just to name a few. We have built-in tools to address all of these needs, and for things like data synchronization, conflict resolution, and offline access, this is just built into the framework out of the box and doesn't require you to consider these at all. Next, it's a modular framework. So what do we mean by that exactly? Well, there is a pre-built mobile UI component library for Schedulo Plus, which means you can take pre-made mobile-ready experiential components like sections, lists, text, inputs, image uploads, and simply configure them for your intended solution. You don't have to worry about actually building, testing, and maintaining the UI elements themselves. The UI components themselves are native to either iOS or Android and match the core UI of the Schedulo Plus mobile app seamlessly, providing a beautifully consistent experience for your end users. And finally, as I've alluded to, the Mobile Extensions framework, from the engine that takes care of the data synchronization through to each of the UI components that are available to use, evolve over time, so you can focus entirely on the solution and not worry about the complexities of broader mobile development. So now let's look at some of the common use cases for mobile extensions. One of the most common use cases for mobile extensions is for situations when you need to extend aspects of a customer's profile to your mobile workforce. Sometimes this is to enable the mobile workforce to assist customers at the point of service. For example, helping with a billing query a customer has may require someone in the field to have access to the latest billing information related to the customer. And typically it tends to be a list of read-only data someone has access to in the field. Another use case, which can also sometimes blend into the use case we've just covered, is where you require your mobile workforce to not only read data, but you also need them to create it as well. So to extend on the examples we just covered, this may be where you would also like your mobile workforce to view as well as create invoices in the field, and more squarely within the data creation use cases, when you require information to be logged. For example, it might be a patient note, or a timesheet, or perhaps an incident or hazard on a construction site. Another use case is where you might only need to create but not view data. And what I mean by that more specifically is that it's logged via the Schedulo mobile app, but the user doesn't have access to the data that's historically been created. So let's look at an example of collecting customer feedback. Your team might collect feedback whilst on site, but once they've logged or created the feedback, the information is no longer accessible from the device. And our final common use case is when you need to collect or display data outside the context of an item of work. For example, you may want your team to have access to their accident and incident form irrespective of if they are assigned to work or not. And so the mobile extension needs to be available outside the context of a job. But don't worry too much if you haven't heard ideas or examples you have in your mind. These are just some of the more common ones. But with such a versatile framework, it's easy to see why we don't have time to cover off every example we've seen. As you've also probably picked up from the examples, you can create mobile extensions that are industry or vertical focused, such as a patient profile, or mobile extensions that are more horizontally focused, for example, billing history or invoice creation. But either way, hopefully that's given you some ideas around the types of mobile extensions you could build, and generally a pretty good sense of what mobile extensions are. Now let's look at the architecture of a mobile extension. A mobile extension typically comprises of 4 key elements: business logic and data, the actual UI the user interacts with, static files or images that are referenced in the UI, and the actual text presented to the user based on their set language. And if we take this one step further, each of these domains are represented within the file structure of a mobile extension. So broadly speaking, you can see that a mobile extension can be thought about in 4 layers. You have the data layer, where we define the data we need to read and write with, which is defined within 2 specific JSON files. Then we have a presentation layer that is made up of 3 key JSON files, a language layer that contains one or many language definitions, and finally custom functions. And don't worry, you don't have to memorize any of this. This is all available in our reference documentation, and I will be guiding you through configuring each one of these files as we go along. Well, thanks for sticking with me through the introduction to mobile extension development. When you're ready, join me in the next video when we'll get hands-on with building mobile extensions together. See you then.